Suppose you had the opportunity to free yourself of all worldly responsibilities for 10 days, with a quiet, secluded place in which to live, protected from disturbances. In this place, the basic physical requirements of room and board would be provided for you, and helpers would be on hand to see that you were reasonably comfortable. In return, you would be expected only to avoid contact with others, and apart from essential activities, to spend all your waking hours with eyes closed, keeping your mind on a chosen object of attention. Would you accept the offer? Suppose you had simply heard that such an opportunity existed, and that people like yourself were not only willing but eager to spend their free time in this way. How would you describe their activity? Navel-gazing, you might say, or contemplation, escapism, or spiritual retreat, self-intoxication or self-searching, introversion or introspection. Whether the connotation is negative or positive, the common impression of meditation is that it is a withdrawal from the world. Of course, there are techniques that function in this way, but meditation need not be an escape. It can also be a means to encounter the world, in order to understand it and ourselves. Every human being is conditioned to assume that the real world is outside, that the way to live life is by contact with an external reality, by seeking input, physical and mental, from without. Most of us have never considered severing outward contacts in order to see what happens inside. The idea of doing so probably sounds like choosing to spend hours staring at the test pattern on a television screen. We would rather explore the far side of the moon or the bottom of the ocean than the hidden depths within ourselves. But in fact, the universe exists for each of us only when we experience it with body and mind. It is never elsewhere, it is always here and now. By exploring the here and now of ourselves, we can explore the world. Unless we investigate the world within, we can never know reality. We will only know our beliefs about it, or our intellectual conceptions of it. By observing ourselves, however, we can come to know reality directly, and can learn to deal with it in a positive, creative way. One method of exploring the inner world is Vipassana meditation, as taught by S.N Goenka. This is a practical way to examine the reality of one's own body and mind, to uncover and solve whatever problems lie hidden there, to develop unused potential, and to channel it for one's own good and the good of others. Vipassana means insight in the ancient Pali language of India. It is the essence of the teaching of the Buddha, the actual experience of the truths of which he spoke. The Buddha himself attained that experience by the practice of meditation, and therefore meditation is what he primarily taught. His words are records of his experiences in meditation, as well as detailed instructions on how to practice in order to reach the goal he had attained, the experience of truth. This much is widely accepted, but the problem remains of how to understand and follow the instructions given by the Buddha. While his words have been preserved in texts of recognized authenticity, the interpretation of the Buddha's meditation instructions is difficult without the context of a living practice. But if a technique exists that has been maintained for unknown generations, that offers the very results described by the Buddha, and if it conforms precisely to his instructions and elucidates points in them that have long seemed obscure, then that technique is surely worth investigating. Vipassana is such a method. It is a technique extraordinary in its simplicity, its lack of all dogma, and above all, in the results it offers. Vipassana meditation is taught in courses of 10 days, open to anyone who sincerely wishes to learn the technique and who is fit to do so physically and mentally. During the 10 days, participants remain within the area of the course site, having no contact with the outside world. They refrain from reading and writing, and suspend any religious or other practices, working exactly according to the instructions given. For the entire period of the course, they follow a basic code of morality, which includes celibacy and abstention from all intoxicants. They also maintain silence among themselves for the first 9 days of the course, although they are free to discuss meditation problems with the teacher, and material problems with the management. During the first 3.5 days, the participants practice an exercise of mental concentration. This is preparatory to the technique of Vipassana proper, which is introduced on the 4th day of the course. Further steps within the practice are introduced each day, so that by the end of the course, the entire technique has been presented in outline. On the 10th day, silence ends, and meditators make the transition back to a more extroverted way of life. The course concludes on the morning of the 11th day. The experience of 10 days is likely to contain a number of surprises for the meditator. The first is that meditation is hard work. The popular idea that it is a kind of inactivity or relaxation is soon found to be a misconception. Continual application is needed to direct the mental processes consciously in a particular way. The instructions are to work with full effort, yet without any tension. But until one learns how to do this, the exercise can be frustrating or even exhausting. Another surprise is that, to begin with, the insights gained by self-observation are not likely to be all pleasant and blissful. Normally we are very selective in our view of ourselves. When we look into a mirror, we are careful to strike the most flattering pose, the most pleasing expression. In the same way, we each have a mental image of ourselves which emphasizes admirable qualities, minimizes defects, and omits some sides of our character altogether. We see the image that we wish to see, not the reality. But Vipassana meditation is a technique for observing reality from every angle. Instead of a carefully edited self-image, the meditator confronts the whole uncensored truth. Certain aspects of it are bound to be hard to accept. At times it may seem that instead of finding inner peace, one has found nothing but agitation by meditating. Everything about the course may seem unworkable, unacceptable. The heavy timetable, the facilities, the discipline, the instructions and advice of the teacher, the technique itself. Another surprise, however, is that the difficulties pass away. At a certain point, meditators learn to make effortless efforts, to maintain a relaxed alertness, a detached involvement. Instead of struggling, they become engrossed in the practice. Now inadequacies of the facilities seem unimportant. The discipline becomes a helpful support. The hours pass quickly, unnoticed. The mind becomes as calm as a mountain lake at dawn, perfectly mirroring its surroundings, and at the same time revealing its depths to those who look more closely. When this clarity comes, every moment is full of affirmation, beauty, and peace. Thus the meditator discovers that the technique actually works. Each step in turn may seem an enormous leap, and yet one finds one can do it. At the end of 10 days, it becomes clear how long a journey it has been from the beginning of the course. The meditator has undergone a process analogous to a surgical operation, to lancing a pus-filled wound. Cutting open the lesion and pressing on it to remove the pus is painful, but unless this is done, the wound can never heal. Once the pus is removed, one is free of it and of the suffering it caused, and can regain full health. Similarly, by passing through a 10-day course, the meditator relieves the mind of some of its tensions and enjoys greater mental health. The process of Vipassana has worked deep changes within, changes that persist after the end of the course. The meditator finds that whatever mental strength was gained during the course, whatever was learned, can be applied in daily life for one's own benefit and for the good of others. Life becomes more harmonious, fruitful, and happy. The technique taught by S.N Goenka is that which he learned from his teacher, the late Seaji U Ba Khin of Burma, who was taught Vipassana by Seya U Tet, a well-known teacher of meditation in Burma in the first half of this century. In turn, Seya U Tet was a pupil of Ledi Sayadaw, a famous Burmese scholar monk of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Further back, there is no record of the names of the teachers of this technique, but it is believed by those who practiced it that Ledi Sayadaw learned Vipassana meditation from traditional teachers who had preserved it through generations since ancient times, when the teaching of the Buddha was first introduced into Burma. Certainly the technique agrees with the instructions of the Buddha on meditation, with the simplest, most literal meaning of his words. And most important, it provides results that are good, personal, tangible, and immediate. This book is not a do-it-yourself manual for the practice of Vipassana meditation, and people who use it this way proceed entirely at their own risk. The technique should be learned only in a course where there is a proper environment to support the meditator, and a properly trained guide. Meditation is a serious matter, especially the Vipassana technique, which deals with the depths of the mind. It should never be approached lightly or casually. If listening to this book inspires you to try Vipassana, you can contact the addresses listed at the back to find out when and where courses are given. The purpose here is merely to give an outline of the Vipassana method as it is taught by S.N Goenka, in the hope that this will widen the understanding of the Buddha's teachings and of the meditation technique that is their essence.